first virtual campfire chat. Wish we were around a campfire today and in the snow and just gathering together. But today we're going to do things a little bit differently, kind of like the difference we've had in 2020 and the beginning of 2021. Today you're getting an opportunity to learn about Dodge's impact on the community, learn more about our Nourishing Everyone's Need for Nature campaign. And we'll be hosting 3 of these. Upcoming topics will be preschool, community outreach, and our farm program. And we're thrilled today that you've decided to join us as we will hear from Pam Welisevich, one of our lead naturalists here at Dodge Nature Center. Tons of talent, tons of experience, and she may bring you behind the scenes a little bit today. Along with Pam, I'm joined by Jake Mazinski. He'll be handling some of the technology. There's also a chat function at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we'll have a Q&A at the end of the program, but feel free to enter your questions to me, and I can relay them on to Pam, or questions for me as well. But before Pam comes on with maybe some surprises along the way, we'd like to show an interview that aired during a Night for Nature in September about how our animal programs adapted to the events of 2020.
My name is Pam Welisevich. I'm a naturalist here at Dodge Nature Center. One of the long timers. I've been here more than 20 years now. How time flies.
So in one of your roles, in multiple roles here at Dodge, but one of the roles is the E-STEM coordinator with Heritage Middle School.
Mm-hmm.
You spend typically every week going into the classroom?
Yep, almost every week. It's about a half-time position. So hopefully in general, I'm there 2.5 days a week.
Perfect.
And I see all 200 of their 5th grade students here in 197 at that particular school.
This last March, things changed. That stopped. Well, how did that affect you and the partnership with Heritage?
Well, I talked to my liaison and we decided that I would make some videos, and we focused on the topics that we had sort of already been doing at the school. Each season I focus on some sort of an animal topic. So we start in the spring with an insects, and we discover bees and cockroaches and all kinds of exciting creatures of that sort. We move into reptiles and amphibians in the later fall, and then mammals is usually in the wintertime, and we had just started our unit on birds. We like to do birds in the spring because, of course, that's when they're visual, they're noisy, they're very, very relevant. And so we decided to start with a good old-fashioned owl program. And I think it was well received by the students. Actually, the teachers told me that the lessons that I was sending via video were the most interactive lessons that the students were actually doing through school. So it was very exciting for me, and I think it was fun for them.
More than 2,200 people have logged into our YouTube site and watched some of your videos.
Awesome.
Over 13,000 have seen it through Facebook. How has that impacted kids as they're coping with this at home?
Well, I think children really identify with animals. They love seeing them. Just look at the whole lineup on Saturday morning television. It's all geared towards children with animals. And I think for me and my students, the nice thing was I was a familiar face as well. So in this trying time when kids were a little bit overwhelmed, a little bit stressed, parents were stressed, that to be able to tune in and see someone that they knew handling an animal, talking about things that they were interested in, hopefully gave some families peace of mind. Hopefully we snuck in a few learning points along the way as well.
Everybody, my name's Pam, and you just saw me in that video. Tonight I'm actually here live around, well, I'm wishing I was around an actual campfire, but I can assure you it's pretty chilly inside this room, so I feel like I'm outside, even though I'm doing the program from the comfort of the office here at Dodge Nature Center. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about being the animal caregiver here at the Nature Center and some of the challenges and some of the rewards that happen with that. Part of my job, my main part of the job that I have here at the Nature Center is to teach programs, and many of them involve our educational animals. So the other part of my job is to actually care for those animals. And as a Nature Center we're really fortunate that we have a large menagerie of animals. I think currently we have over 20 reptiles and amphibians that include snakes, toads, salamanders, turtles. We have a fair amount of an insect collection, or arachnids, actually arachnids and insects. We have a large colony of roaches that we use for education and for food, not for us, but for the animals. And we have a couple of tarantulas right now that we do take care of. And we currently have 2 birds of prey. Sadly, we lost one of our stars, our red-tailed hawk, a few weeks ago, due to no fault of our own, but it happens. And so we are a little bit in mourning over the loss of him. And we also have a mammal that joined our education team not that long ago, a little nocturnal or nighttime flying squirrel. So I will be bringing out some of the animals shortly and sort of sharing their unique tales, how they got here, why they're here, how they can help us in our education by using them. But I wanted to just speak a little bit about some of the infrastructure or the challenges that go into caring for these animals and having them here on site. There's a lot to consider when we are using our educational animals. And so for us here at the center, our number one priority is, can we provide the proper care and well-being for these animals? When they come to us, usually an animal will be here for the rest of its life. So we have to be able to have all the capabilities of being able to provide for the animal, not just physically. Anyone can throw a rat at a raptor, but we want to make sure that psychologically we're making sure they're healthy as well. So we have to have an enrichment plan, and we have to have a vet lined up. So there's a lot that goes into making sure that these animals stay healthy and well cared for, and hopefully happy. One of the big challenges that we have is the legalities of housing these animals. So we currently carry numerous permits for these. Some of them, it's against the law to actually have at your home. They're not pets. They don't make good pets. So we actually have a relationship with the Department of Natural Resources for the permits we need to just have them here in Minnesota. And we have a great relationship with the Fish and Wildlife. So we have a partnership with the feds that enables us to have them according to the federal laws as well. And so every year we fill out a whole bunch of paperwork to ensure that we are caring for these animals properly and doing due diligence for them for the rest of their lives. Some of the other challenges that we have with them is financial. Animals cost money. So we have to make sure that if we're going to accept an eagle here for possibly 25, 30 years, we're going to have the funds in order to continue to care for him. Our eagle currently costs us about $5 a day to feed. So times that by 365 days, and he's a fairly expensive date. So we have to make sure that we're capable of doing that for an extended period of time. All kinds of crazy things involve financial challenges. Pumps for the turtles. We go through a pump probably every 6 months because our turtles are kind of use the pumps hard. A lot of water is being filtered. So it's another thing that we have to always have in the back of our head. How many of these animals can we have? How many tanks can we set up? We know we have to have a great food source for everybody. Amphibians eat live food. It's really difficult to find live insects out in the wild in the middle of a Minnesota winter. So we have to know that we've got a source that we will be able to continue to feed them what they need to eat. I can't just give them lettuce and think that everything will be fine. And of course, when we take in an animal, we also need to know that we have a veterinarian that will be able to care for that in conjunction with us. If it's something beyond our capabilities, we need to know that we have a place where we can take the animals and that they'll be cared for properly. So another question that people will ask me is, how do you decide what animals you're going to have at the nature center? And so one of the big things that we try to adhere to is we try to keep animals here that, for the most part, you would see out in the wild. So we try to keep native creatures that you would see at the pond, see at the prairie, see in the woods. We do make a few exceptions. Obviously, tarantulas aren't roaming around in our woods, but we do sometimes feel that a few exotics are worth keeping because there's such an exciting animal. Like bringing out a big tarantula is a real grabber when students see that. And so you can open all kinds of conversations by using that exotic. Something that we're struggling with right now in the naturalist world is whether we name our educational animals. The old school of thought was if you named them, people thought they were pets. And I can assure you that none of the animals that we have here as an educational animal make a good pet. You can't let them sleep in your bed. You can't take them to the park. I can't even feed them the peas that I don't want to eat under the table. But the tide has turned on the naming. And so it's been sort of discovered that people care more about Bowtie, the bull snake, than the generic bull snake. So the tide is turning there, and people have decided that naming animals can be an okay thing. As long as you do stress, they're not great pets. One thing that we have to basically promise is if we do take an animal in, it is here for their life. We cannot decide, that snake got too big, I'm releasing it. That's highly illegal. They would come down on us like a ton of bricks if they discovered that we were doing that. So that's another thing when you accept an animal. A turtle can live, our snapping turtles are one's only 3 years old. It can live 75 years. So it has to be, it's a pretty long-term commitment. And so you have to be willing to do that. We also try to make sure that our animals have a habitat that while not quite being what it would have in the wild, will mimic the way they live in the wild. So that all, again, is making sure they've got a large enough enclosure, make sure they have the proper substrate or bottom of it, make sure they have access to the greenery or the water that they would require in the wild. So all these things factor in. Some of the other things people ask me is like, well, what do you do when your animals get old? And that's a challenge. That's something that ethically we have to consider very seriously as our animals age. Euthanasia sometimes can be the kindest thing that you do for an educational animal, but we will usually, we will try to do the best thing for our education ambassadors for as long as possible. So currently we have some older raptors, birds of prey, and they are on arthritis medicine. So anyone that shares that same thing knows what that's like. We have hospice creatures, giving them painkillers until the end. And then sometimes, like I said, euthanasia is the kindest thing we can do. So aging is a challenge when you do decide to take an animal into captivity. We have a great support structure though for educational animals. We work very closely with the Raptor Center at the University of Minnesota. We work very closely with the Wildlife Rehabilitation Clinic. We actually have a great support structure just amongst our peers. I belong to a group that every year, those of us at the nature centers in the Twin Cities that care for the animals gather for a meeting, and we sort of air all the challenges we're having, some crazy things that have worked for someone, and just basically are there to prop each other up and say, hey, you're doing the best you can. We are not above fixing things with duct tape and paper clips though. So we get very creative in the animal care world here at Dodge Nature Center. What I'd like to do is I've got a couple of animal ambassadors here with me, and they all came to us for different reasons. And they all are actually helpful in sharing information about the natural world in different ways. So I think I'm going to show you the one that he actually escaped a little while ago. I'll be perfectly honest. I didn't tie his enclosure tight enough and came in and he was getting ready to eat one of the other animal ambassadors. So these are little things that you have to be aware of when you're taking care of animals. I'm going to start with him because if I touch anyone else, sometimes he can smell that, and that's when accidents can happen. So I'm going to grab him. and I'll tell you a little bit about him. Some of you may recognize him if you have come into the office here at the Nature Center. So I'm just going to get a good handle on him. He's awfully cold because the room is cold. Here we go. So this is Bowtie, our bull snake, native to Minnesota. Years ago, there were many of these. There's obviously less now because we are not really as much of a prairie state as we used to be. That's where they're found. And a lot of times people would confuse them with a rattlesnake. They're not found in the same habitats. Rattlers are found more in the crevices and the rocky bluffs down south. But this particular animal would have been in the prairie. And he's come to us. Oh, my one animal's making a lot of noise, scratching around the cage. So my Vanna White is removing him at this moment. So this animal is interesting because he is now more than 6 feet long. Try to get you a little bit. And when he came to us about, I think he's been here about 14, 15 years, he was the size of a pencil. And this animal was an animal that was raised in captivity. So it was born at another nature center, and they had extras, is kind of the way to, I guess, phrase it. So they needed to house or rehome some of theirs. So we said, well, gosh, we could use a bull snake. And so we were able to acquire him, and we traded for a salamander. So at the time, I thought we were getting the better deal. But if you've ever gone out hunting for salamanders in the last 10 years, you know that they really have declined with all the construction around the Twin Cities, and of course the environmental pollutants that are going into our waterways. Sadly, salamanders have declined. So they're actually really difficult to find these days. So I'm not so sure that we got the better deal. This animal is a wonderful education animal because he's really great at telling people about predator-prey. He's really great at dispelling the myth that snakes have about they're slimy, they're gonna attack you, they're all venomous. And so the great thing about him is we can use him to hopefully dispel many fears that people have about this wonderful animal that's a great part of the food chain and the environment. You can actually see he's sticking out his tongue. That's standard for snakes. He's actually gathering the smells in this room to see if there's anything here that might be of interest to him for dinner. And there actually are a couple things. So I think he's probably on sensory overload at this moment. So this is one that we acquired by a trade because he was born in captivity and would never be released to the wild. So I'm going to put him away, and I'll show you another. He goes into a pillowcase for the time being. It's a great way for snakes to travel because if you actually knot the pillowcase, they can't escape. And it's dark and cozy, which actually is comforting for them. So I'm going to knot it since I'll be here for a few more minutes and don't want him to escape again. All right, I'm going to show you the noisy one now because he's making a lot of noise, and so we might as well just bring him out. Brenda tucked him under here. Now this animal is in the same family as the snake, of course, being a cold-blooded reptile. Probably not seeing a whole lot of these at the pond right now. But this animal actually came to us because it was, was actually born with a deformity. So it's kind of difficult to see on Zoom, but he's actually missing one of his eyes. And as a predator that hunts visually, he'll also use his sense of smell, but they are very visually oriented. When he was found and brought into the wildlife clinic, they decided he probably wouldn't do well with only one eye. So again, he came to us because of an injury, and he came to us as a young turtle, and we will keep him for possibly up to 40, 45 years. Painted turtles are very long-lived. And when I said painted, a lot of people might be noticing that he doesn't have the beautiful colors that a wild painted turtle would have. This is one of the challenges of having an animal in captivity. Because we can't perfectly simulate sunlight like it would be in the wild, where he would sit out on a rock or a log and bask, soaking that in, their colors do fade in captivity. Even though we feed him a variety of food, we do give him enrichment. We will take the turtles out in a kid's pool in the warm weather and let them soak up some vitamin D with the sunlight. But it's just not quite the same as being in the wild. And so he does fade, but in every other way, he's very healthy. He swims great. He's got no problem swimming with flotation, no problem eating, no problem defecating, no problem trying to mate with one of his roommates. So in all other aspects, he's extremely healthy. But this is one that we got because, again, of a deformity that he was born with. And so in the wild, probably would not live to be a mature turtle. So that's our painted. And this animal is great. He's super easy to transport. He travels in a little critter keeper. And then we usually put our reptiles into a cooler when it's cold like this, because that will help insulate them. And when the heat is very warm, when it's a hot summer day, that actually helps them from being overheated. So we have a lot of coolers that are marked "do not store food in." So that's one that we got in a very different way. Let's see if I can get my little mammal out. She can be a little shy, but recently we just acquired a mammal for our education team. She might come out to look at the, and what we got was a flying squirrel. And we got her because what happened was she became what's called an imprint. I'm gonna bring her right up to the camera so you guys can see her. She's got her little face right there. So she actually fell out of the nest. There she is. When we had that cold snowstorm back in October, she had been a late baby, fell out of the nest, and was found by a family. And they actually kept her for a few weeks when she was very young. So she's what we call an imprint. She was imprinted and probably would not do well living in the wild. They also discovered that she had, oh, there she is, that she had 2 frostbitten toes. So they actually amputated those 2 toes. And again, being a flyer, who doesn't really fly, but jumps, they didn't think that she would probably do well in the wild. And I think she's looking at that little piece of orange. Oranges are great for these little creatures because they give a good supply of calcium. So that's the way we get calcium into her. We have discovered that her favorite foods are freeze-dried crickets and raisins. So she really loves those. And you can see those huge eyes that enable her to be a really good eye-sighted creature in the dark. What's been recently discovered is something pretty cool. If you ever have the chance to see flying squirrels, and they are here in Minnesota, you usually have to go a little farther north or out of the cities to find them. Although I've been told that even in the cities, you can spot them at bird feeders in the nighttime. They've just discovered that their underbelly will glow hot pink with a black light. So if you know of a place where you can spot flying squirrels, it's sort of a fun activity to take that black light out there and shine them. There's all kinds of thought on what it is, what the use of that would be, and they think it's probably a camouflage type situation, but it's pretty cool that it's just been recently discovered. So she's an imprint. We've got our born with a deformity. We've got our born in captivity. I'm going to show you the last one that I've brought in here, and he's kind of the star of Dodge Nature Center, although right now he's been a little bit extra challenging, which I'll share, but I'm going to get him, and I do have to put on a glove to get him out, and he's in a crate, so it'll just take me a minute, and then I'll bring him front and center and tell you his story. So he's travels very well in a dog crate, but of course I have to open it and get him on the glove. All right, we'll step up. Well, and if you're listening, you already heard and had a pretty good idea of who was going to appear on screen. For those of you who've probably met him, this is Shakespeare, our barred owl. And Shakespeare's been with us about 17 years now. He's about 18 years old. And so in the wild, this bird would probably be approaching the end of his life. But because he's living here in captivity, we can extend that. We can supply him with a good food source. We can keep him safe from predators. He's staring at the snake. If you see him looking off camera, the snake is moving in the pillowcase and he's watching the motion, which is actually good because it'll tell me he's interested in some food. And we actually have him on arthritis medicine because as they age, their joints tend to become arthritic. So he's probably one of our most used education animals. He goes everywhere. Thousands and thousands of people have met him. But he's been posing a problem the last few years at this time of year. It is mating season right now for barred owls. And being he lives outside, he can hear the other owls mating in the wild. And so we're not sure why he does this, but he goes, he's been very talky tonight. He goes off his food, and it doesn't sound like that's a big deal for a couple of days, but he's been known to extend that. And the food itself wouldn't be a big deal. He can go for quite a while without eating, but his prey is the way that he gets all the hydration that he would acquire in the winter. There's no open water. They don't eat snow. So he's acquiring that hydration by the prey. So if he's not eating, he's not getting any moisture. And so he becomes seriously dehydrated, which can lead to organ failure and so on and so on and so on. So yesterday, he and I went for a visit to the Raptor Center where we force fed him a little bit of food. So he does have some calories in him, and we hydrated him. So basically we injected water under his skin that will diffuse over the next few days and he will be good to go. The hope is that will jumpstart him into wanting to eat again. Personally, I don't think it sounds like a really great survival strategy, but I was talking to the doctors there who we have a great relationship with, and they said that a couple of their captive owls do it as well. He's very chatty tonight. What we think probably happens is in the wild, he would be bringing that food to his mate, so he wouldn't be eating. But it starts to get, it's a vicious cycle. He doesn't eat, he doesn't get moisture, he doesn't eat, he doesn't get moisture. And so it gets worse in captivity. So luckily we can take him in. Hopefully we can get him to prompt him to start eating, and he can become, well, he'll never become a father, but he can continue to be our great education animal that he is. This bird's probably been more places than many people I know. So I'm going to put him away, and I'm going to hand it back over. And I would love to answer questions shortly. So if you have any, just put them in the chat, and we'll get to them as soon as it's my turn to answer some questions. So thank you.
Olivia Dodge always sought out the characteristics and interests and passions that other people had, and she respected them and helped them to move forward and grow in their own path.
Mrs. Dodge's legacy is extremely important to this organization, and it's where we started and it's where we built from. She is still impacting people's lives by what we are doing today, and will continue to impact those lives for many years to come.
I think in Minnesota we're too good at keeping secrets, and Dodge has been too well kept a secret for too long. This campaign is really critical to ensure the viability and sustainability of Dodge for the next 50 years and beyond. And one of my hopes is that as a result of this successful campaign, Dodge will not only increase its visibility, but it will increase its audience. It will increase its program offerings. It will increase its range and its reach.
I don't think we can think in terms of an ambitious goal. I think we have to think in terms of how much do we want to protect something that we believe in.
Too many people are presented with too many barriers for meaningful access to the outdoors and connection to nature. And I think we have an opportunity now to really do good work in accessibility and equity in environmental and outdoor education.
I think it just means what I believe in, which is that we all need to have time in a natural setting, to breathe deeply of clear air, to walk and have a vista of green and growing things, and to allow our minds to reach up and think as high our thoughts as we can manage.
We're extremely excited about the Cottage Grove community. When you think back to Dodge Nature Center in 1967, this property was surrounded by farmland. And you look at it today, it sits in the middle of housing, but it's here, it's a resource. Cottage Grove is very similar when you fast forward to 2020.
I think what Shepherd Farm really does for Dodge is it allows it to increase its footprint, increase its visibility, increase the audiences and the numbers served, really press into equitable opportunities for access to nature in the East Metro. Replicate what Dodge is already doing best and most innovative in its field, but also be an incubator for opportunities that we have yet to discover. I'm excited to support this campaign because it's an opportunity to not only ensure the longevity of Dodge Nature Center and preschool, but support the expansion to Cottage Grove and an entirely new audience.
Cy and I responded to the invitation to support this campaign and work for it because we sensed that the timing was right to build a foundation that would support the base for the future.
Thank you for considering a gift in participation and support of this campaign, the largest campaign in the history of Dodge Nature Center and Preschool, and an opportunity to invest in not only what we're doing now, but ensure the legacy and longevity of Dodge Nature Center and Preschool for the future.
Your support is so important to this. This will allow children to continue to come to Dodge Nature Center, to spend time on our trails, to climb Challenge Hill, to be connected with nature. We want to create experiences for adults as well. We want adults to come back that have sent their children here, to be able to tell the same stories their children are telling them. Experience our programs, experience our trails. Your support is key in allowing that opportunity for Dodge to grow, not just here, but in this community and in classrooms and in schools.
Whatever Dodge means to you, this is an opportunity to continue that innovative work and make sure that Dodge is in a position to succeed as we all go forward at a time when nourishing everyone's need for nature is more important than ever before.
Welcome back, everyone. Wow, Pam, fantastic. As always, whether it's in a den in an office or around a campfire or outside, our naturalists like Pam bring life to all as you listen. I learn something new every time, and I've seen those animals. I've heard Pam, and every time I listen, I learn something new. That video we just got done watching was something we shared with the public back in September, and that was kind of the kickoff of our public comprehensive campaign phase. And so excited that evening in September to say that we've raised $28 million towards our $40 million goal. Even more proud to sit here today and say, as we start 2021, we're over $30 million raised towards that $40 million goal. We all know the hardest part is still in front of us, that final stretch of this goal to reach. And we have years to do it. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, but it's going to take time, and it's going to take a number of conversations. And we're just happy to be able to talk about Dodge and to teach others about the wonderful things that we are bringing to this community. When you think of dollars raised right now, I look off the side of my camera, and 15 minutes ago, as Pam was talking, I got to see 2 deer walking alongside of our new Cloverdale Trail. If you have been here this week, or if you haven't, you notice that we've added a new dock. We had our floating boardwalk, but now we've expanded it all the way over to almost the office. We want to improve accessibility here. And with that means making sure that strollers, wheelchairs can be accessible to everywhere on the property. And we want to make people able to get from one side of the property over to the farm. And these upgrades are taking place right now because of the funds that are raised in our campaign. This spring, you'll see parking lots being changed again to adapt to help more people get to Dodge. When you think back of Mrs. Dodge in 1967, it's her vision, it's her passion that we still live with today, and think about her legacy. So we have people joining our Egret Society with planned gifts in this campaign, and we can't thank those folks enough. And I know some of those folks are on this call. Thank you. Thank you so much for your support. We've introduced the Wildflower Society, which coincides with our $1 million annual fund match, and we've had outpouring support for that. We continue to work on new goals and new dreams, as well as new positions for outreach and sustainability and continued capital projects. We have more to do out at Shepherd Farm and to do here on the Maine property. If you're ever interested in learning more about the campaign and how you can support, please call me. I'm always happy to talk about the future of Dodge. At this time, I'd love to bring Pam back and open it up to some questions. I'm looking over to my right here, and I see a number of questions coming in. So Pam, if you could rejoin me. Awesome. So Pam, looks like the first one is for you. So let me find it here. Pam, how has animal care changed during the pandemic?
Well, animal care is always challenging, but during the pandemic, it became even more challenging because we couldn't make use of our volunteers, which was heartbreaking. We have some animal care volunteers that, in my opinion, are worth their weight in gold. They pull the weekends, they pull holidays for us. And so it was heartbreaking to tell them that they couldn't come to work. I had to do 100 days of feeding the raptors by myself. Luckily, we were able to become really creative, and we sort of devised a system where we could bring the food outside for them, keep it warm enough for the birds, and let them come back and actually start caring for the animals again. So we're excited that we've been able to do that. We're hoping we can bring more people back in as things begin to change. So keeping our fingers crossed. That was a big deal, losing our volunteers for a time. Jason, I don't have any sound from you. Technical difficulties.
That's because I'm on mute, as usual. It happens every time.
Okay.
Sorry about that, everybody, but volunteers, huge role. I see volunteers on this Zoom call right now. I see you, those that are on our board, to those that are helping us with administrative tasks, to those that make cards for us. We see you and we thank you. Pam, is there an animal that you wish we had?
Ooh, well, there's lots, but I think one that I would really, really enjoy having would be, this is going to sound a little crazy, but I would love an opossum. Sounds kind of crazy, but possums are quite easy to train. They're short-lived, so they're not a very big commitment. You actually kind of have to keep a revolving door of them, but they're such a unique looking animal. They're an animal that can help us teach about climate change, because 50 years ago, you didn't really see possums in Minnesota, but with the warmer currents trending this way, we do. They can't carry rabies because of the temperature of their own bodies. And they're just such a bizarre looking animal that so many people have some preconceived notions about them, that I think that they would be a great addition to our education animal team. So yes, an opossum.
Love that question. I don't know if we've seen that question before, so that's great. See, that was amazing. Shakespeare's a hoot. I like what the person did there. That's good. How much does Shakespeare weigh? He looks like he would be heavy to hold up on one arm.
Yeah, that's funny. Kids will guess. I'll have kids guess, and some kids will be like, oh, 25 pounds, 50 pounds. And I'm like, well, unless I'm Superman, that's probably not happening. Birds are deceiving because, of course, they've got lightweight bones. They're covered with feathers. They do not keep any waste material inside their body for very long. So that bird at his heaviest weighs about 2 pounds. So right now in the middle of winter, we let him be a little bit chunkier. He's about 2 pounds. In the summertime, we slim him down to about 1.5 pounds. Our eagle only weighs probably about 8 pounds, which does start to feel like 50 pounds when you're holding them for more than 10 minutes. But in general, compared to mammals, they're very, very lightweight. Great question.
Here's someone that knows a little bit about your background and some of the things that you do here, the extra things that you do at Dodge. Did you have any baby farm animals staying at your home for a bit this past year?
Well, somebody must know. Yeah, pretty much every year we've got somebody living at our house. This year we had Stella, a little lamb whose mom, sadly, she had triplets, but had no milk. And so 2 of the triplets actually passed away in our home. So that was a little bit tough, but we decided to really try to make a go. I mean, we tried with them all, but Stella was the strongest. So she lived at our house for about 2 months, so that we could feed her every 4 hours, just like a baby mammal needs. And she became quite imprinted. She's now back with the flock and happy. And, you'll call her name and she'll kind of look at you now. But sheep are not nearly as attached as some of the other animals that we've had at our home over the years. But she was really fun. I live in the middle of the city, and so we would have her on our front porch, and we have a glass door, and all the kids in the neighborhood would walk by and say, they'd knock on my door. And of course it was COVID, so we couldn't let the animal out, but they would stand there and Stella would come to the front porch and all the kids would get excited to come and see Stella. So there's people that in my neighborhood now come here to visit to see Stella because they were walking past our house. So, yep, she's a crowd pleaser.
Excellent. Question about the beehives. How did they do this summer in honey making?
They did great at honey making. They didn't do so great going into the winter. So sadly, we've lost our bees, and we will have to rehive this spring. But as far as honey went, we actually did pretty good because this is kind of sad, and I probably shouldn't tell you this, but because the naturalists weren't going in there 6 times a day teaching programs, the bees were actually able to produce more honey, and we weren't disturbing them. So it's a little bit of a give and take. They are there for education, but they got a break this year and were able to produce a lot of honey. So
this one looks like it's for me. There's a question about a couple of nature centers that have closed over the last year, and how is Dodge doing overall right now? Very proud to say that we are very strong right now, which some may say is surprising to think in this environment and the changes that are going on. But we've had a number of our supporters, the ones that are on here, to step up and make sure that we're serving this community. And if there's one thing we've learned through this pandemic is the encouragement to get outside. And if you're at Dodge or been at Dodge, you know that visitors are up here. There's more feet on the trails. There's people getting outside, which some days are great. And then there's some days it's a challenge because there may be a school group here, or they may push the rules a little bit. And it's new people here. It's helping them understand why we are here. We're not a park. We're a nature center, and education is number 1 here. And we want to make sure that those that are coming for that, we want to make sure that we're doing it. But Dodge as a whole is very strong. Proud to say that we've had no staff changes, no layoffs or furloughs or anything like that through this. Planning on none. And we've had a great team that's got extremely creative throughout this whole thing. And every day is a little bit different. And I think Pam would agree that one day she may think she'd be doing a class one way, and the next day she's doing it something different. I think the hardest thing for me one day is when I walked in and I saw our naturalist Jeff out in front of the Eagle doing a program with the screen and no kids. You could hear the kids asking questions to him through the iPad. But it's different. It's a different teaching tool, and we're adapting to that. But we can't wait to get kids back on site and get back to where we want to be. Correct, Pam?
Absolutely. We miss kids so much. I mean, we've learned to make peace with the technology and do these programs online, but boy, we can't wait till we have hordes of kids swarming around us again. Hopefully soon.
Absolutely. Well, everyone that's been on this call, attendees, you're here because you've supported Dodge. You've said, you know what, Dodge Nature Center is important to me, and I want to make sure that it continues to grow. And we want to thank you for that. On behalf of our team here, on behalf of Pam, on behalf of the board of directors, thank you for supporting Dodge Nature Center. And please continue to watch your emails. Check for our next Campfire chat, which will be with Amy, our preschool director. Learn a little bit more about the preschool that maybe you didn't know, kind of like today. Did you know Dodge had a flying squirrel? All kinds of fun stuff you can learn. So continue to watch us on social media. Make sure you're getting our emails, and we'll see you out here soon. Thanks for everything. Bye-bye.
Thank you.